Any opposed? Any abstentions? That is unanimous as well. And next order of business is our public comment. Is anybody here for public comment? All right, seeing none. And then we have our student representatives report with Ms. Boyle. Hello. We missed you last week, or last meeting.
I know.
It's definitely not as fun without you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was at a college visit for.
Oh, yes, we decided that was a little bit more fun than being here.
Yeah, it's crunch time, so you gotta do it. But my name is Grace Boyle. I'm a senior here at Monomoy, and I'm excited to tell you about all the good things that happened here at Monomoy this last month. We recently faced the dreaded November 1st deadline for early action and early decision applications for most schools. Although everyone, the seniors, the teachers, our guidance counselors alike were on edge, we made it through. We could absolutely not have done it without the amazing English teachers who gave up their time to read and reread and reread all of our college essays, and also our incredible guidance counselors who kept everyone sane. And it's worth it. We already have 2 of our students who have been accepted to schools. Nathan Amaker was accepted to Norwich University, and Morris Blue was accepted to Keene State University. All of the fall sports have come to a close except for football and cheerleading. Boys and girls soccer, as well as field hockey, each qualified for a tournament, but after hard-fought games were eliminated in the first round. Cheerleading has won the league championships and goes off to regionals this weekend. Football has one last game tomorrow night in New Bedford. All sports ended with a great record and should be proud to be building the programs that they are. The Special Olympics, organized by the Best Buddies program, was absolutely awesome. Schools from across Cape Cod joined us here at Monomoy to celebrate the school day games. Soccer, wheelchair soccer, football, face painting, and jewelry making were just some of the awesome activities that the students organized. The Best Buddies loved it. Joey, one of our Best Buddies here at Monomoy, had the biggest smile on his face the whole day, saying it was the best day ever. William, another one of our Best Buddies, wore his medal every day for a week after the games. The school council meeting was also very successful. A coalition of students, community members, and teachers were able to get together to discuss a number of things going on at the high school, raise concerns, and figure out how to make Monomoy seem more like a home away from home. Similarly, Mr. Burkhead put on the school's first think tank. Parents and students in the community were able to come together to discuss how to make Monomoy great as well. Some discussion came up about the schedule, cell phones, AP classes, and more. The students love getting the platform to voice our opinions, and we are really grateful that Mr. Burkhead wants to facilitate this. Global Studies had its first fundraiser to defray the cost of the exciting service trip to the Dominican Republic coming up in February. It was an auction held at the Wauquasit. It was organized by Mr. Dixon and the kids going on the trip. We're happy to say it was extremely successful and raised a lot of money, and we have the community members and people who donated to thank for that. Mr. Dixon, a very busy man, also organized the annual stand trip to DC that we will go on this weekend. Some of the activities include going on the Monument Tour, visiting the Holocaust Museum, lobbying Congress, and seeing the Veterans Day ceremony at the Arlington National Cemetery, as well as the National Stand Conference. There's about 12 kids going on the trip, and we're all excited enough to leave that we're leaving at, we are willing to leave at 3 a.m. tomorrow morning. Another event that Mr. Dixon organized was attending a voter participation workshop put on by Tufts University at the Cape Cod Community College. 3 students, Cheska Barr, Olivia Graham, and Ted Clifford, and I was supposed to go, but I had to take a test instead. They worked on solutions for the lack of youth participation in voting. It was really cool for them to be able to critically analyze the real world and close-to-home issues. The Breakfast of Excellence, which many of you attended, also occurred this past month. It honored our AP scholars, myself, Olivia Graham, Jacob Poitras, and Owen Van Sickle, AP scholars with honor, Tara Berry and David Van Sickle, and AP scholars with distinction, the one and only Cheska Barr. It also honored the top 20% of MCAS scores in the senior class, which are our Abigail Adams scholars, as well as 4 juniors who achieved perfect MCAS scores last year. Mr. Monomoy was also a very fun community unifying event. This hilarious, unorthodox bead pageant for boys featured singing, dancing, comedy, and virtual design, and costumes, and more. Hopefully this can be a tradition continued at Monomoy. Our TV and video students also got to attend mass Q, which is a digital media educational conference at Gillette Stadium to show off our awesome digital media program. Students Jan Lipinski, Pat Gill, Shannon Smith, and Abby Sullivan presented all about the program, our equipment, and were able to show off some of their own work. They did an awesome job of representing Monomoy. Lastly, I want to promote Key Club's Gather to Give event. It is a day for crafts, games, live music, and for children in the spirit of Thanksgiving. The date is November 18th, Saturday, 10 to 2. Admission is a couple of canned goods that we will donate to our local food pantry. Please spread the word, and if you have any children, we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? I think that'll earn you for not coming for a week. Nice long presentation. Thank you very much. All right, next up is recognitions. Mr. Carpenter, recognitions.
I would like to thank the Art of Charity for two donations they made. First, they made a donation of $2,650 to support the middle school's Historia Antiqua, which will allow the MFA to provide 4 live presentations for all students, culminating the experience with a 2-day mini museum at our middle school, and then another $1,290 from them to support the Enterprise Cafe, this little after-school type store out of that cafeteria. And then lastly, just to thank the students and staff that put on the 4th annual Senior Citizen Thanksgiving dinner here at the high school. The text I got from Mr. Burke had said that they had 140 senior citizens from our 2 towns come and join them. So a record group. So congratulations to them for pulling off this for the 4th year in a row.
That's great. Thank you. All right, so then we move on to our reports and discussions, and we have a STEM presentation from Mr. Barnes and Mr. Newby, the dynamic duo.
Okay, so we're here to present the general model of how STEM is going into the school, and this is a modification of what we tell parents to keep them up to date with what we're doing. Like, you have some copies of the slides already, but we've made a couple of adjustments based on even more current events.
So I'm Mr. Newby.
Mr. Barnes.
We pitched out.
Okay. So, in the beginning, the students are designing projects, and they're very small scale, and as you can see, they're a little rough around the edges. But the main goal is to get to the essence of the standards for engineering, which is the engineering design process, identifying problems, defining problems, solving problems. Beyond that, the rest of it is just, there are more standards, but if you don't have those, you don't really have anything that's engineering.
This is a bridge, by the way.
Yeah.
If you were wondering what this was, this is a first attempt at a bridge. This begins in the 6th grade, and it's a structures year. And so this is their first attempt at how a bridge should look.
As part of this, they learned some basic computer drawing. Starting in what looks like a very simple assignment in 5th grade, they make a physical nameplate in Mr. Newby's class, so they make a digital nameplate in my class. We co-teach all of the classes so that all of the students get all of the experiences, and all of the students go through the STEM program, grades 5, 6, and 7.
So we're working on a model of an analog, which is the sort of physical world, which I teach, and then the digital world, which Mr. Barnes teaches. And they're really coordinated in a way that they see the similarity between the 2 worlds and how they meet and form this kind of bigger picture of the STEM world.
So you saw the first little, basically, the nameplate with rectangles and some text. These are also some models that were made from the students in the early days. These are 5th graders who have gone and they've had to learn how to use tools in SketchUp, which is the program we use, which is a free program. Part of the goal that we have is that most of the things we do, we try to make it so that if a student is really that interested, they can get it for little or no money and keep working at it. So these same kids that had trouble making a rectangle last week made these probably about a week later. As you can see, some more basic designs for, again, many of these are ideas for bridges and structures.
So this is a bridge as well.
Yeah.
So you can see that these are the very, very beginning ideas that they had. And over the course of a term, we look at the way the forces are applied to bridges and how they can counteract forces.
Yeah, this is a more recent bridge picture, and this one was handed in yesterday by one of the sixth graders this year. You can see that they've dimensioned it out, they've got a midline in it, and they've actually indicated the frequency of their bridge truss. So this is over the course of one trimester.
This is a 50-sheet paper bridge. It's built just with recycled paper. We use a lot of recycled materials. It's only 50 sheets, white glue. This particular bridge held 225 pounds. The current school record is about 275 or 278, something like that.
Wow.
So the kids, they go from this very rough kind of idea of how the bridge should function to one where it's really performing at a very high level.
And in the picture, those really are the weights that
Those are the weights that it held.
That's incredible.
We also use a lot of paper. There's a long story to that I won't get into as to why we use a lot of paper. But in the fifth grade, we spend a lot of time with paper just as a single material and explore the different kinds of things that they can do with it. We talk about things like center of gravity, mass, tension, compression, and these are really essential concepts that they learn. And they build this is a bridge, or a tower, excuse me, I've been working with bridges all day. This is a tower that is built from 2 pieces of paper and 12 inches of tape. And we've had them over 8 feet. The record is about 9.5 feet. So this is a thing where the expectation of looking at 2 pieces of paper and thinking, there's no possible way I can get this beyond maybe 3 or 4 feet, and then suddenly you see one that's 8 feet, and they realize that there's just it's really a different world when you start to get into the practice. This is another paper project. You'll see a lot of paper projects in the fifth grade in particular. They build prototypes. They build lots and lots of prototypes out of paper because it's really inexpensive. They get a chance to model. They get a chance to test. And so they see that they really learn from the failure of the test. And then they're basically trying to meet a particular kind of criteria. And so they just spend a lot of time looking at their results and then changing the design. This is a 3-sheet paper egg drop project. So they get 3 sheets of paper, they get glue, they drop this from 10 feet, and most of these, this happens to be quite an elegant solution that was sort of blow up paper balloons. And so they were able to manage 3 balloons out of these 3 pieces of paper. These are both very terrific students. So.
Where would the egg go in that one?
It's right in the middle.
In the center?
Central
Okay.
tube.
That's my guess.
And this one survived. This was a good one.
Okay, and then some of these things that we do can be done in a very short period of time, like the bottle rockets. And it's just, in general, rockets are cool. The kids they get very excited over it. And again, it's something that they can learn at home. They can do at home with some minimal materials. I mean, that is literally a used Dasani water bottle and some paper and tape and a ping pong ball. Right. And an air compressor.
And
That's the fun part.
It's amazing. I mean, they're so stunned at how high they go. I mean, when they lose sight of the rocket, there's just this kind of collective gasp. It's very cool. Here's another.
Yeah. One of the things that the kids put a lot of work into these bridges, and they put a lot of research into these bridges. And we tell them from the beginning, no bridge has ever survived the class. So they test every bridge to failure because we look into failure points and failure mode analysis like you would in any sort of engineering failure, because that's how they find the limit of their design, and they don't know how strong their bridge is until it fails. There's always that question, well, what if there was a little more weight? Well, once it fails, you know, well, that was how much. That's how much. And they learn from that, and they leave, you know, and they know that, yes, your bridge failed.
And so we show the kids these failures, in fact, so that they start to learn where to, in fact, change the design. So this is one of the product of recording this is applied to the next class. And it's really one of the reasons that they start to get better and better every year. There's usually an increase in the amount of weight that they can hold. So they're
learning.
pioneering.
Yeah, they're learning from the previous year's failures and improving their designs from that.
So this is a project, an ROV project, which is an underwater vehicle. This is a triggerfish, and we built some other much more complex kinds of ROVs. We started this about 4 years ago. We worked in conjunction with the science teachers to use these for water collection and water sampling. And if you want to talk a bit about how we're going to look at this in the future.
Yes, the various models of these, because they're tethered, we're using, again, those tethers are made from broken Ethernet cords, so when one of them breaks, we get a new cord. So we build these and we can hook up data wires through those cables so that we can record dissolved oxygen in whatever it's going through. We can record temperature, we can record video, and we can make these things. And that sequence there is made with tiny motors in a 35 millimeter film can. We get larger and larger models of these that have it's basically a more robust platform. You can put more things on them. They can travel in water that has at least a little bit of current. But it's the thing where we can use these for science. Like they're not just remote control vehicles, which would be cool. But these are remote control vehicles that can help us learn about particular bodies of water and take data, like real data on, the waters that are surrounding us. And we're doing some work with the Friends of Chatham Waterways at the moment. We've taken data in the past for some
the World Water Challenge, which is sponsored by I think it's National Geographic and the Smithsonian Institute, to get a data collection, basically data collection from around the world, so that we can have an assessment of how water looks in the world, which I think we all know it's not good. So, but
yeah, so we as you can see, the level of sophistication in 7th grade has gone up a little bit, but we still keep with it's not just the computer. So they can build, they can design models of their car, they're designing, working on their designs, but they're working with the bandsaw, the drill press,
right,
the hand tools.
So there's a connection between really the physical world and then how it gets applied to the kind of digital component that we have. And you'll see that we have some pretty cool digital stuff coming up here that really allows the kids to have full access to stuff that mostly adults have access to.
Yeah. But again, this is the core of the program, the information design process. If the kids leave with one thing, this is it. If you can identify a problem, research it, solve it, share your results,
then
we've pretty much
succeeded.
You're going to be able to do things.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's engineering, you can apply this to all sorts of other problems. But this is our non-negotiable. If you get out with this, things are going well. Well, we're doing this because every teacher is a literacy teacher. We've been using, see in this case, it's a biomimicry article. Since we're using robotics, underwater vehicle, things like this that are relevant to what we're doing. And we use, in this case, Newsella, which is a service in which the kids can read the article at 5 different reading levels, but it's the same article. It's just reworded at different lexile levels. There's a quiz for comprehension at the end, so I can see if they're reading it at the right level. And this is part of their progress grade and their participation grade. And the kids can access these anyway. There's a Newsella app for your phone if you have it. You can access it online. They sign with their Google credentials, so they don't have to have a password. So it's been really good. What I've been finding is I get reports that kids are reading articles independently that I haven't assigned, because while they're there, they see things that are interesting, and they're just reading them because they're interesting. So I feel like that's been a good side benefit. Coding's also important. So in sixth grade, we introduced some basic coding. In this case, this is Java, but it's using Blockly. It's using code.org, which is the same folks who bring me the Hour of Code. This is the 20-hour accelerated course that they have, so they learn basically the ins and outs of programming logic. The JavaScript is in there, and it's the same ideas and commands, and this is used at a variety of levels. You can find Blockly, which is the way that's being done, used from elementary through college. Now, once they get that,
Leads to this.
yeah, at least this is where it gets really intriguing. Arduino is a simple microcontroller. Microcontroller is like a computer, but not quite. It's something where you program it, and every time it's powered on, it does whatever you told it to do last. And it can do something very simple, like make a light blink, but it can also form the guts of a 3D printer. It's pretty powerful.
So we're really teaching circuitry in the 7th grade. We start with the simple motors. They basically learn how they have to give an explanation of how a simple motor works, which then allows them to talk about how to control a motor. And we wire switches. They learn soldering. They learn how to handle components. They learn about resistors. They learn a lot of very basic kind of electronic language, and in the end, they get to program these things for other purposes.
So again, this looks a little less candy-like compared to the previous programming, but this is very similar to a simple version of the C programming language. And we can use a lot of existing code and then adapt it to whatever projects we want to do. During one of the Arduino seminars, it was entertaining that one of the kids, when they were learning to use a buzzer, went online and found the code to make it play the Super Mario theme, and managed to take the code we were using and insert that. And it was quite very cool. But even some of these simple ones, they start with something that makes it blink, but then they can learn to use what's in it to make it blink messages in Morse code or something like that. But then we go further and further.
And the reason that we do this is that we're starting to introduce robotics into the 7th grade. So this is Matt and I did a little mini course over the summer as a kind of pilot to see how this could work in the 7th grade, because we wanted to introduce robotics in the 7th grade, but not the kind of robotics where you have a kid and the kid follows a kind of script to make the robot do something. We actually wanted them to make it, to build it, to construct it, to understand the physical side of the robot, as well as the wiring component, and then also the Arduino side of it, where they programmed this. This is an avoidance robot, so there's an infrared sensor that senses distance, and it scans, it looks for objects in its way, and if it sees one, you set the range. Oh, that was me. That was my optical avoidance. So the vehicle will stop, and it backs up. It takes a little survey to decide which way it's going to go, and they can make adjustments to this. So it's really a very cool, simple but very effective first robot.
One of the nice things about that robot there is that if you shop around, we're looking at about $20 worth of parts. So if you buy the name brand microcontroller, that's $30 right there. But all of that put together is in the $25 range. The kids did all the wiring with breadboard. In this case, a breadboard is a temporary prototype thing where you just poke the wires into the board, so you don't have to get into the soldering. If you need to change it right away, you can move it around. But when it came down to getting the motor to go the right way, they had to program that part. How far away is the obstacle? They sat there calibrating the readings on their sensor, setting a threshold and saying, well, this number is this big when you're here. If it's, if it's this big, then I need to back up.
And in essence, the really cool part of it was that most of the kids were 5th graders. So in about, I think we calculated it was about 12 hours they were able to build one of these. So we have a really fabulous machine at the middle school, a laser cutter, which was what we used to cut the parts. And in this case, this is a seminar that I did with fifth graders last year to design and build a solar sprint car. There's something called Junior Solar Sprint, which is a competition. Unfortunately, the Cape version is not very together, and they didn't hold the race. They canceled the race because they just, I'm not sure why. But the kids while they were disappointed, they came up with some absolutely beautiful designs and builds. This is made from recycled cardboard. There's a solar panel on the top. There's a motor. They decided on the gearing. They made the wheels using a 3D printer. This is, really doesn't get any better than this. This is very cool. Okay, next.
Yeah, and so that's our summer robot crew. So you can see those are our pioneers in robotics at the school. And every single one of those kids went home with a robot. And they even had a little time left over, so they 3D printed themselves a license plate for them. We won't make you watch the movie. We've taken a huge plunge into 3D printing. As you can see, it generates some interest. They weren't on yet. This is what happened when the kids walked into the rooms and we had unpacked them.
So they were really into it.
So they're very excited about it. So we've gone, again, the modeling piece of it is taking actual measurements, learning to sketch with a pencil and paper, transferring that idea to a computer, and making a model. This is an assignment where they have a simple structure, a 9-volt battery, and their goal is to duplicate it as closely as possible. This, that's one of the first ones, and when the first one came out, the kid looked at it and said, oh, these corners are pointy. The first thing the kid did is head back to their sketch, and off they went.
Yeah.
This particular sketch on the left, that is 6th grade student work. And they are amazing. And again, that particular drawing, as soon as the kid got his back, he realized it's a smidgen too tall. And even though the assignment was over, he had to go back and fix it. So it's been very exciting.
So we have a laser cutter. This is kind of in my area, so I spend a lot of time with it. You basically we start with a sketch. The kid will come up with basically a dimension sketch. All the numbers are justified. They know what they're going to draw. They draw it in Mr. Barnes' room in SketchUp. They bring it. We are able to cut it and with very high precision. This is a gear train that they didn't draw this, but they built this gear train. We've used it for parts of the play for last year's set.
Yeah, that's a famous microphone.
So we didn't have
drawing in some plywood.
And these are our facilities. This is my room. So we have our basic table setup. We have table saw. We have band saw. We have drill presses and that kind of thing. We have a fair number of hand tools. And this is the laser cutter on the left. And it's a great machine. It's really been so helpful to us. And so the kids, they see this cutting, and they're very excited by the prospect. So we're actually introducing it into all grades. So we're introducing a very simple paper cutting exercise in 5th grade. In 6th grade, they make bridge parts with it, and then in the 7th grade, they'll be working with the robots.
Okay. And then this is the sort of the digital lab, and where most of the 3D printing occurs. And there are a large number of 3D printers there. It seems almost extravagant, except for each of the parts the kids make takes about between 20 minutes to an hour to make. So if you have a class of 23 5th graders, you need to keep the workflow going.
Right.
And the nice thing is that these are inexpensive enough that
We worked diligently, and we now have 10. So it's been a pretty neat change from something that was a novelty to something that is actually part of the curriculum.
And the total cost for the 10 is
$4,000.
less than what the first two cost for.
So they're so inexpensive now that it really makes, and they're better printers. That's the most, even more amazing part is that the printers are actually better.
Yeah, and the software's easy enough that, I mean, well, Mr. Carpenter saw it.
Yeah.
The kids could just stroll on up, slice up their projects, get their SD cards, and
Put them in.
off they go. It's not Mr. Barnes is printing this for us.
Right.
It's, I'm printing my drawing, I'm printing my model. And the fact that they're in that workflow, it's not someone doing it for them, they are doing it themselves. It's a completely different concept. And that's where we get to this. We've introduced a ton of technology in here, but it's not just to be a better pencil. You know, yes, we use Google Classroom, and it's replaced every piece of paper I use. Like the only thing I do with paper is make things out of it. Like I hand it out, I don't take it in. My classroom is paperless. Every written assignment. So yes, we're substituting that for paper, but we are redefining what these kids are doing. These kids are using digital calipers and making exact replicas of a model that they've made themselves. They haven't scanned it, they've drawn it, they've made it, they've printed it, and it's completely different from what they were doing just a couple of years ago. So we feel that it's really, you know, up to the game of the STEM program dramatically. But pencil and paper for sketching is really important. So they need to know that skill, and they need to know how to measure and safely cut on a bandsaw and safely use a drill
And a knife.
and a paper.
And scissors.
Yeah, just so that, yes, we aren't just leaving everything behind.
Not at all. I mean, it seems that way, but it really isn't. I mean, the fact is there's always a hands-on project that leads to the use of the technology. Modeling is a really important part of design understanding. You get a sense of scale, you get a sense of how the material responds because you're using it with your hand. So we spend a lot of time talking about modeling, and every model leads to, I mean, this technology that we're looking at is really a modeling technology. It's not a manufacturing technology at all. It's a prototyping technology, and we're trying to get the kids to see that once you achieve a certain kind of precision, it allows for advancement in the design. So that's the really cool part of this whole deal.
But we do actually give the kids grades. But there's a philosophical sort of weight to this. At this level, performance is important. Your product should work. But the actual participation, giving your best, collaborating, working with your team, doing your research, that still counts. It counts quite a lot in our general philosophy. Progress. Are your skills getting better? And if you saw from those SketchUp, their skills are getting better. You know, the rectangle with a circle on it became a truss with dimensions. You know, and homework, we don't actually give a lot of homework because there isn't we give a lot of work, and they can do it wherever they want. You know, the new Zella. Do you want to read it in class? Read it in class. Do you want to read it on your bus ride home on your phone? Read it on your phone. So we don't give a lot of specific homework. They have to decide when they can get their things done. If they need more time in class to work on SketchUp or they can get some help, read your articles at home. If you're all set with that, read them in class and then do your SketchUp. That's fine. But the performance part does still count. And so if you don't meet the minimum weight for the bridge, you don't get the A on it. If you don't pass the test on the content that you're supposed to know, you know, that will count. But it doesn't sink you completely. You know, you still can take that risk. If you're not sure your design is going to work, but you really think it's a good design, you've done your research, we give credit for taking smart risks.
Okay.
Which then leads us to the next one. Speaking of participation, it's not a squishy category. We have a rubric on what we actually have for participation, and we give it to the kids early on. So I know it's tiny text there, but we have, you know, but the bullet points are sort of to sum up. You know, do you take care of your materials? Do you know, actually try to meet the challenge, or you just sort of coast along? Attempt to the direction, such as getting and using the information that you have, asking for the information you need, giving your best efforts, fantastic, and doing your part and letting the other people in your group be there. and it's one of my sticking points. If you do all the work for your group, you are not helping the rest of the people in your group learn how to do anything. So you do not get a good participation grade in the collaboration category if you don't let anyone else touch the materials. In fact, sometimes I give people a card and I promote them to consultant. What it says is for the next, for the rest of the period, you're not allowed to touch anything. You can just tell people how you think it should be done. So I give them a promotion to consultant. Nobody ever wants that again. But sometimes people get bad grades on things. Most of the things I sent back have a rubric attached to it at the bottom, and they can see what I was looking for and what they did. And this is one of the things you send to the parents, what do I do now? And, sometimes we've got, in any given week, we could have 250 students wander through, depending on the timing. We could actually type in, I put in a 1.85 or an 18.5 out of 20 goes, and that'll change somebody's average, and if you call me and I check it, that happens, but we fix it right away. Most things can be fixed, because the whole point of engineering is that it's a process where something fails and you fix it, and then it works. That's the general idea. But just about everything gets handed back with some sort of rubric or comment or something that will tell you, this is why it's not a good grade, and you can fix it, send it back to me.
Right. We're really using the classroom and Google Classroom as a tool so that the kids have access to their understanding of what their grade is about all the time. I mean, they can just look it up on their cell phone. So it's a very really wonderful way of keeping the kids in the loop. So they score the rubric or they don't understand the rubric, then they can come and see us.
Yeah, that point, I think that's the last slide.
Okay.
But the whole point is that we're just trying to get it that no matter what it is, whether it's a bridge or your test, if at first you don't succeed, if you do the work and fix it, you will eventually succeed.
Any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Russell?
The collaboration, my understanding is many or most projects, you team the kids up.
They do, yes.
And yet, independent of that, you've got to watch out for the three of them or the two individually. Kids get a standard of a grade. So there's some need for the kids to work as a group of three or...
Yes.
Exactly.
Great idea.
For instance, if there's a bridge, everyone submits a drawing of the bridge. You may use one final.
In the group.
But everybody in every group submits a picture, because they have to learn the skills.
Right.
And if you leave it up to somebody else, you don't get to learn the skills to do it. So everyone submits it, and your group decides on, this is the one we're going with.
Right. So we actually have a pretty clear formula using the engineering design process worksheet that allows the kid to see where they're at in the process. So every kid has to fill that out. Every kid has to get checked out on their part in the process. So no kid gets really left behind, but everybody they get to work on those worksheets collaboratively. So if somebody doesn't have a particular skill or they're not able to figure some things out, we try to get pairs of kids or three kids that sort of complement that. We have them from the 5th grade on, so we get to know them, and so we compare their skills. So one person might be a good drawer, one person might be a really good writer, and so we put them together so that they start to accentuate those skills, and they get a good model from another student. Because not everybody has the same skill. That's the kind of the beautiful part of this, is that we're encouraging the difference in the kids so that they don't have to be great engineers. They have to be good partners, they have to be good collaborators, and they can bring their piece to it. I mean, we always say, every kid in this room has a gift. We just have to figure out what the gift is, and then in the kind of collaborative phase, we start to see that, and they start to see it, which is really a neat thing.
Ms. Stout?
I'm so glad you came. I always was intrigued about what the STEM was that the kids were learning. But the overview here of what they're doing is far broader than I thought, with working in a team when we're talking about 21st century skills,
Right.
and some of the thought processes. But also, this really whets the appetite. I'm really sorry that we couldn't be here doing some of that stuff. That's the way it is now. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Carpenter?
I just want to thank the two of you publicly. I think you saw in the presentation presentation. I think a wonderful give and take between the two of you as our two STEM teachers at the middle school, and I mean, it really shows when we look at the program that happens there. It's having had children go through their classes. It's pretty clear that there's a disproportionate number of kids out there that seem to gravitate towards either Mr. Barnes or Mr. Newby as one of their favorite teachers, and there's good reason. And I really appreciate that it's the STEM program at the middle school that's really pushing our district forward. I've been commenting at the high school that when we brought our two programs together, we had more of a traditional approach to tech ed at the high school, and we've had two teachers retire in the last year, so that we've hired two new people who we've sort of tasked with taking the program that the kids have and launching from it, not taking the program that we have at the middle school and going back to sort of old school woodshop. And so we'll have here in the next couple weeks a presentation from Larry Souza and Rich Oldak, who are two new tech ed teachers at the high school, on the direction they see the program heading over the next year, which does have budgetary implications to go and start taking and getting some equipment that dovetails into what the kids are already using at the middle school. So, but again, thank you so much for really moving this district forward in great.
You might have guessed, I think we like what we do.
You can't really tell.
But we're actually really excited to work with Larry and Rich, because we spent a day with them sort of looking where we could go. I think it's been really good. Those guys we're very excited about having them on board.
Okay, anything else? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Good night.
All right, so then we move into our reports and discussions on the regional agreement discussion. And just prior to our meeting tonight, we had a workshop with just our school committee members, just to begin the discussion again about our regional agreement. And last year, we kind of started it a little bit and started the process of reviewing it. We are required to review the regional agreement every 5 years. So we began that process last year, so we had a good head start. But then we dived into a little bit more of the details earlier, just to talk about some of the changes. A lot of the changes to the regional agreement is just removing information from the interim school committee, so it's unnecessary in the regional agreement anymore. And then also we talked about adding some information when we have a vacancy in the school committee. We had a discussion about quorum, and if there's a vacancy, what the quorum would look like. We did have a discussion which will feed into our next reports and discussion about elementary schools in the district, and I'll come back to that one since that will feed into the next conversation. And we had a conversation about the capital costs and the debt service that we apply to our budget and how that affects our towns. Am I missing something? No. So those are the main things that we discussed, and then there was a couple of semantics. Like, for example, the regional agreement mentions nowhere in there that we are now Monomoy. It was just the regional school committee and the regional school district. So we get to add in there that we are the Monomoy Regional School District. And there was just a couple of other little wording things. But the process is going to be that with the regional agreement, we have to review it, and then in 3 weeks, we are actually going to have a joint workshop with the Chatham and Harwich Boards of Selectmen, town manager, town administrator, and possibly finance directors prior to our next meeting on November 30th to kind of hash out with them some of the changes that they may like to see. Because what we need to do is we need to review the regional agreement, and then our committee needs to vote on what we would like to see changed That then needs to go to each town's Board of Selectmen so that they can approve what those changes are, and then it will go on town meeting warrants. And so any changes to the regional agreement have to be approved by both town meetings in order for the changes to be enacted. And actually, I forgot a step in there, it has to be approved by the DESE, one of the educational bodies. It has to be approved prior to being a final vote with the towns. So, add anything? So, in part of that also with the regional agreement was talking about the elementary school configuration. And that is a very large discussion. That was not just going to, is not going to be just a discussion of the school committee and the selectmen and eventually a town meeting. That's a much larger talk that we're having, and that will feed nicely into our next report, which is Mr. Carpenter's community forums sharing. Tag. I would have given you more notice. I didn't know you had to stand up. Sorry.
So, over the last couple of weeks, I think this afternoon, I finished my 7th meeting with parents in different forums, getting input on how the school start times went. And so if I just kind of focus on that for a moment, I think at the forums, there have been a few people at many of the forums who liked the old way better, the old start times, for a number of reasons. I think primarily some community members that raised concerns about the start times or more about financial concerns that their family, because of the earlier start time, the elementary school have now some after-school programming time that they're paying for, and that has been a financial burden for their families, and there's a hope that we can find more affordable ways to do the after-school supports that some families need. But I think the vast majority of families that we talked to, including today at the Chatham Elementary School when I was after the PTO meeting there, the vast majority of the families have really spoken positively about how the start time is working for their children, both at the elementary school and the middle and high school levels. I think there are some teachers and some parents that kind of wonder if, and I think this is a concern that Mark raised last year, whether that some of our middle school kids are really betwixt and between. They come in as 5th graders, maybe more having circadian rhythms, more like elementary students, and they may leave as 7th graders with circadian rhythms more like high school students. So I think the feedback so far when it comes to start time, I think in general positive, with some concerns on just financial implications for some families. The other conversation that I've been having is what to do when it comes to a regional agreement review when we look at how our elementary schools are configured, because the wording in our regional agreement basically states that Chatham children shall go to Chatham elementary schools, Harwich children should go to Harwich elementary schools, and we have some dynamics that have changed as the district has sort of come together and now is starting to evolve. And a lot of it really is based on the history of Chatham Elementary School and where its population came from. And so as we came together as a school district, a significant portion of Chatham Elementary School's population, about 25% of them, were choicing in from Harwich. And the families at the time were looking towards Chatham Elementary School because it had much smaller classes than Harwich Elementary School. And what was coming after Chatham Elementary School was Chatham Middle School and Chatham High School, and the families that were looking for sort of a smaller, more intimate educational setting for their children. And that's a choice that they made. Harwich Elementary School at the time, I think my take would be looking at it is they took in a large number of students through school choice, many of them coming from neighboring towns to the west, and that artificially brought up some of their kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2 classes, so that the largest classes at Harwich Elementary School were at our lowest grade levels. And as a educator, I kind of look at it that our smallest class sizes should be our kindergarten, first grade, second grade. But it was I would look at it as almost a strategy to make sure that there was enough children after school choice happened and took students from the district over time, that there was enough kids to have a senior class at Harwich High School. So as the districts come together, we don't have that same pressure to have a big enough group. We've got kids coming from both Harwich and Chatham now to make that senior class. I've also done everything we can to try to balance out class sizes. So my first year here, when we were building budgets and making decisions, I started to have in every budget presentation I've done that year and since talked about sort of these guidelines we should have our class sizes stay within. Should have our elementary schools with class sizes of 18 plus or minus 1. And we've done that. We've managed that over time, so that we've basically told families you can school choice to Monomoy, but the openings are available at Chatham, not at Harwich. And so Harwich has really become a school that has fewer and fewer kids from outside of Harwich and more kids from Harwich. But as you balance the class sizes, because we now are balancing class sizes so that they're even between Harwich Elementary School and Chatham Elementary School, the Harwich families that once looked towards Chatham for smaller class sizes are like, okay, I'm going to have the same class size, and what comes after elementary school is going to be the same. So you have fewer families choicing over from Harwich to Chatham, and we have Chatham now with fewer students to keep 3 sections or 3 classes per grade level going. So we had the challenge this year for our kindergarten, although we had, Sam Hein at Harwich Elementary School has been sending out each year letters to families and kindergartens inviting them to look at Chatham Elementary School, and Robin Millen, the principal at Chatham Elementary School, tours the families and encourages them to come. But we had less than 10 families who were interested in choicing to Chatham Elementary School, and it would have left us with, if we took all of those classes, 3 sections at Chatham Elementary School of 12 children, and 5 sections of kindergarten at Harwich with 20 children in each class. And that difference between 20 and 12 didn't make a lot of educational sense for the kids or the district. So we moved the first kindergarten teacher over to Chatham Elementary School, which now has Chatham Elementary at 2 sections in kindergarten, Harwich at 6. The challenge for us looking forward is 2 sections of kindergarten this year, and we don't see, looking out into the future, that there's a big cohort of children in waiting. So we're looking at 2 first grades, 2 second grades, 2 third grades, and 2 fourth grades. So within the course of the next few years, Chatham Elementary School has the potential to get small. The other concern, and I've talked to different groups about my own positionality on this. When I came here, my son was in a very small Chatham Middle School cohort, where it was he and just a handful of other boys. And I think it was a really tough first year for him to find that those peers with matching interests. If you're at Chatham Elementary School right now and you're a boy in kindergarten, there are 11 other boys your age to connect with. That's it. And I wonder if that's enough peers. So again, that's my own lens, but it's something that we've heard in every one of these meetings from other parents that have similar concerns about when things get too small. Conversely, I've also heard from parents that are concerned that Harwich Elementary may be too large. as it's currently configured, it's with the 6 classes per grade level at Harwich Elementary School, it will be running at that building's capacity. I actually argue the building should have had one more classroom to be at that capacity, but doesn't. And so it's a building that's going to be running tight at 6 sections. So one of the things that I have been talking about is, do we look at doing some sort of different elementary school configuration? The challenge with our regional agreement is it doesn't allow for any different configuration. So with the great support of Don Richardson, we were able to put together a one-pager that lists some of the options that the school committee could or should think about as they look at elementary schools. And one is no reconfiguration, the status quo, that we just kind of acknowledge that Chatham has in its historic past had one section, sometimes 2 sections per grade level, that it's okay to have Chatham Elementary become small, and Harwich Elementary would be running much larger. That's what the regional agreement says that we should be doing. Or do we look at some sort of changes that might provide some balance in different ways? So the second option that we discussed with families is this concept of redistricting. What if we take a busload of Harwich students that are currently getting picked up, likely along the Chatham border somewhere, and take that bus, instead of sending it to Harwich Elementary School, send it to Chatham Elementary School? Would that create balance? And doing something like that, to have a busload of about 45 students come from Harwich Elementary School to Chatham Elementary School, would keep Chatham at 3 sections and pull Harwich Elementary down to 5 sections and make one school a little more intimate, and have the other one have 50% more peers to interact with, because you'd be able to have 3 sections of students per grade level instead of 2. And then the third option that we have talked about is something that would involve creating upper and lower elementary schools, and it would be conceptually every student will spend some time at what's currently Harwich Elementary School, and every student would spend some time at what's currently Chatham Elementary School. We would have younger students at one building and older students at the other building, and have talked about some of the advantages of that, that all of the peers are all together. It brings Monomoy together in kindergarten, so that all of the kindergartners are all there at the same building. But it also brings all of the teachers together, so that there's a lot of opportunities to collaborate. And I've been also sharing with parents, it brings parents together a lot earlier. It makes the parents support group that much broader too. But we've talked about how that may have great curricular advantages, and when I show you the survey results, we'll show it from what the different groups are sort of responding to those 3 options, but we'll look at it from what are the Chatham parents saying, what are the Harwich parents saying, and then what are our staff saying. Because I think you'll get kind of a lens on those 3 different areas. In terms of that last option, the last option also has potential to have some cost, and that's something that the district would have to wrestle with. It may involve more transportation expenses. It may involve needing to add some bathrooms for preschool or kindergarten classrooms. So we'd have to look at what it would take to have that third option. So we put out a survey to families in an email that I sent out a couple days ago. And apparently, I've learned if I put an attachment on an email, it shows up in a lot of people's spam folders, including maybe the school committee chair's spam folder. But if I go and resend it and make it a live link where you can get the same information off of the web, Apparently, it showed up in people's inboxes, so.
It
so we
amazingly showed back up in my inbox today.
So we resent it, we resent it, and so it's been sent out to all the families in the district now twice. The other thing that we have done is, I spoke last Thursday to the local early childhood council, and spoke to them about this topic, but also sort of my vision for preschools as we look into the future, and have been working with them to send out through their listserv. So we actually see in the survey a significant number of families who aren't with us yet, but are our future Monomoy families. So there's about, I think, almost 9% of the respondents to the survey are families that will be with us in the future. So in terms of who has responded to the survey, and I'll note here it's a live survey. It's still live and going. So you'll notice when you see the number of respondents in each one of these slides, because it's live, and I was taking the graphic bit by bit, every slide will have a few more respondents, and at the end of this, we can go and have Steve read off what the latest final punchline is. So in which town do you live? So about 2/3 of the respondents to the survey are from Harwich, about a quarter of the respondents are from Chatham, and then there's a set of respondents that are, you could look at it, they're either school choice families that are taking the survey, or there are staff that don't live in either Chatham or Harwich that are taking the survey. So then we ask, are you a member of staff? So 87.6% of the respondents to the survey are not members of staff, and when we do a little staff analysis here, I just kind of lump all the staff together for purposes of this. And then, do you have an elementary age child attending Monomoy Regional? So 64% currently have elementary age children at the high school, in the school district. Almost 20% had children at the elementary level. Almost 8% haven't had children here yet, but will in the future. And then there are a little over 8.5% that don't have children in the district. So they're either community members that are taking the survey, because anybody could go online and take it, or they are potentially members of our staff that have children attending schools in other districts. So in terms of the options, if you take the 245 responses as of whatever time I said, 2:25 today, the no reconfiguration was running about 20%. So if you look at this in terms of how this might inform the school committee, 80% of those that are taking the survey are saying that we should do something different than the status quo. And if you look at then what are the options that they're favoring, a third of the respondents are suggesting do some sort of redistricting that would take almost a busload of children from Harwich Elementary and divert it to Chatham Elementary, and about 45% of respondents are saying create upper and lower school districts. And the interesting thing about this is I had gone on to the survey the day before when there was half as many people who had answered it, and that graph, and I sent the data to Donna and Nancy as chair and vice chair. That graph didn't move. So Steve, if any of you wiggle the mouse pad there, you could read off what the percentages for 1, 2, and 3 currently are, and how many respondents.
It's 45.4 for number 3, 33.1 for number 2, and 21.5 for number 1.
And how many respondents now?
317.
So I think where this number is giving you a pretty tight pulse on where people people are. I mean, it's not changing much, and the parent meetings that I've gone to, it's played out pretty much just like that, going around the table where some have felt very strongly about that there should be a change. I moved for Harwich Elementary School. I moved to Chatham for Chatham Elementary School. There are some who feel that that number 2 would provide the least disruption, but address some of the concerns that both schools may be facing. And I think there are others that that are looking at it that there might be some advantages to bringing Monomoy all together. Early on. So how the numbers break out for the 2 towns, at least as of this afternoon. Harwich, about a quarter of the families liked option number 1, which is status quo, no change. About 20% of the families liked the redistricting, and the majority, over 50% of the families, liked this notion of upper and lower elementary schools. When we look at the Chatham families, a third of them said no. I don't want to see any changes to the regional agreement when it comes to the elementary schools. 43% said that they'd like to see the redistricting approach, and only a quarter indicated that they would be in favor of an upper and lower type of elementary school. And if we look at where the staff fell on this, only 5% of the staff indicated keep the status quo. 20% of the staff said, hey, we should look towards redistricting, and 3/4 of the staff were indicating that the upper and lower would be the way to go. So this is what the feedback is saying so far. There is also in the survey the ability for individuals to make comments, and I think we'll keep the survey open through next week, and I'll put out another reminder and invite people to provide input. And after we close the survey, I'll send to the committee the comments with tagged. Are they staff comments? Are they Harwich parent comments? Chatham parent comments? And which of the options are those comments in favor of?
Any questions for Mr. Carpenter, Ms. Long?
Actually, Steve, could you repeat those 3 percentages you read?
What, I stutter?
No, I couldn't read.
Oh, these people are feisty.
317
Yep.
responses.
Yes.
45.4% opted for number 3.
So we're starting at number 3. 45.5, thank you.
33.1% opted for number 2.
Okay.
And 21.5% opted for number 1.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Step. Thank you, Steve.
On that number of responses, what proportion of the number of parents or school children would that be? I'm trying to get a census of, this was more than just the parents of the kids. Is that what you're saying? It was all staff and parents of kids.
Right. So
The email was sent to,
So the email was sent to all parents, all staff, and then went out to try to capture the parents that have kids in preschools and daycares within the town. So, try to reach the will-be Monomoy parents. So, so parents represent about 83% of those that have responded to the whole survey.
so 83% of 317 would be.
Right, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to get that, so we're saying that, it probably like 5 times as many people didn't respond. Is that what we're saying?
Well, be about 240-ish parents would be, right? So 317, 80-ish percent. So 240 of the 317, 240-ish, that's my
Oh,
quick.
wow.
So
Yes,
240 parents
That's not
responded.
possible.
Well, we have, what, 1,800 students in the school, but you can't say there's 1,800 parents, because
I
some
know.
have multiple.
Right, that's the hard thing I'm trying to figure out. What portion?
I'm guessing you've heard from about 1 out of 4 parents in the district.
Mr. Russell?
Madam Chair, just similar to Steve, the last option 3, I'm recalling it off the screen now, with Howard and Chatham combined, did that come to around 75%? 50 or so percent in the option 3, Howard?
So for Harwich or for?
Howard and Chatham on option 3 when the last slide.
So combined, it comes out to 45% roughly.
Good.
I'll take another look at this slide at some point.
Mr. Duvall?
This may be a premature question, but I think it has a bearing on number 3. Have we taken a look at what the time on the bus will be for the students versus what they're doing now?
And that's something, and I would say every parent conversation I've had is concerns from elementary parents that the bus ride right now is a 45-minute bus ride. Will it be a 45-minute bus ride if we were to go with option 3? I think the challenge that we would have is without adding a slew of other buses. I think we would have to potentially add a couple buses and do neighborhood stops, and then do express. So buses picking up in a section of East Harwich and going to Chatham, or picking up a section of Chatham and then running express over. I think it's conceivable that the ridership times can be the same, but I think we have to add some more buses, because currently we do this. At the middle school and high school, we have buses radiating from all corners of the 2 towns and picking up kids in the same ridership time and getting them to a school potentially in the other town. So I know we can do it. It's whether we can do it with the same number of buses in that time, because the middle school and high school, we're having kids largely walk out of neighborhoods, not have pickup, largely at the doorstep. I think the other thing that I am worried that you might not be able to do in this option is have what we call currently a 2-tier bus system. We do all our elementary runs, and then we do middle and high school at the same time. It's possible that you would have to do an elementary run, a middle and high school run, and then the other elementary run, or some combination of that. I think that's some of the logistics that would have to get worked out, and it's one of the reasons why I'll speak for myself, not for the committee on this one, but I have suggested at these parent meetings that I cannot imagine us putting something like this in place for next year, that there would need to be time to go and work out logistics, and the business manager and I have not put together a budget that is for next year that is accounting for increased transportation costs. So I think realistically, if number 3 was the direction that the communities, was giving you input and the school committee wanted to go, I think it's going to take us till the 2019-2020 school year to go and implement it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so we'll look forward to an update at our next meeting when the survey closes.
Donna Richardson and I will be at the Harwich Elementary School Council meeting next week to hear from people there too.
Oh, yes, do you have, is that it, there's that,
Well,
There's-
I'd like to say that's it for now, but I think this is a hot issue out there. You're more than welcome to join me at any of these coffees.
there's still donuts?
I brought donuts this past Saturday at Harch Elementary School, and I thank Mary for being there to open up the building for us.
I would foresee that even after your parent coffees, once we start having more discussions after meeting with the selectmen, that we would have public forums with the school committee as well. So just because the conversations with Mr. Carpenter are finished individually, you can come join us and talk to us, because we're a lot more fun, even though we don't serve donuts.
We should. One of the things that I have emphasized is that I think there's this perception that a decision's been made, and a decision first hasn't been made, and I've emphasized to people, this isn't my decision to make. This is something that has to get past a town meeting. This is their decision to make, and so I think we need to educate people as to what the district is facing in terms of its challenges, and hopefully we can have informed decisions made by populace at town meeting with regard to our regional agreement.
Yes, it's very important to remember that it's not a decision that we make at the school committee level, and it's not a decision that the selectmen make. It's a decision that will have to alter the regional agreement, which goes back to town meetings, which we hope to have something ready for the May town meeting. But all right, so now we move on to a strategic planning update. At our last meeting, we had conversations about the process that we would like to look into, and Mr. Carpenter was going to contact some companies to find out costs and different levels of service that they would be providing for those costs.
So I have spoken to Future Management, Inc., which is the firm that did actually the Chatham strategic planning session that Sharon remembers, but also the strategic planning session when the district was coming together that I think Steve remembers as well. So they did both of those planning sessions. I've asked them to give us a proposal. I told them that we didn't necessarily need it for today, but to give us a proposal, hopefully that we'll get it by later this month, to have the sort of whole 9 yards approach like they have done before, but also to give us a quote on what it would cost to have someone sort of do a 2-day facilitation with and kind of look at us doing the wedding planning beforehand and the note-taking and report write-up, because what had happened before, I think this firm came in, did all the planning, did all the note-taking, did all the report generation, and provided the superintendent and committee a report afterwards. So it's sort of the what end of the spectrum do you want to have, and there'll be a different price associated with each. I also reached out to your MASC representatives because you're part of their organization. They have 2 members of their team that could facilitate strategic planning, and I'm waiting to hear back from them on interest, time, availability to do 2 days. So that's a possibility too, that you could use somebody like a Glenn Kuchar, not committing Glenn to this, but he was the one I was initially talking to. You could have somebody like Glenn come down and be the facilitator for 2 days if there was time on his dance card or somebody else on his staff that has this type of training.
Ms. Stout.
Did you ask if the person who came down and did the 2010 one in Chatham is still employed with them?
I think when I was initially having the conversation, I don't think they knew who did what yet. But when I look back to them, I'll see if that's.
I could probably find out, but she worked like magic in that, and so all of us who have had different teachers or whatever know that things can sound the same with different money packages, but you have to have really the effective person to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions about strategic planning? Okay. And then we will move on to our first reading of, I think we have 6 different policies that the Policies Subcommittee has provided us. We were given the draft policies as well as the red line versions, Mr. Duvall. So what we will do is we'll have our first reading tonight, and then hopefully vote on those policies at our next meeting. So let's talk about the staff conduct policy, which is GBEB. George Bravo, Edward Bravo.
Very military.
Just kind of flows. Do we have any questions on the staff conduct? I'm trying to find, there was really only one word.
There were just some verbiage changes to that. It was fairly simple. I'm just trying to look at my notes, but yeah, they were just verbiage changes.
Red? Like
Changing regulations to procedures and including the need to ensure that students are under supervision at all times. And also adding an adopted and revised at the bottom.
Okay. Mr. Duvall, do you feel the need we can?
No.
Okay. So does Ms. Stout?
I read them all with the red line, but to be sitting here talking about it, not having it.
I apologize.
Yeah, that one.
I have a copy of the red line if you want. I brought it with me.
You could just.
Okay.
Oh, wait, it appeared in front of you. It's magic.
All right.
Ms. Stout, I'm sorry.
Yeah. My only comment on this, and I was part of the group that made this, I think it's good. I just think that where it says all staff members have the responsibility to familiarize themselves with and abide by the laws of the state.
You turn your mic on.
I'm sorry, thank you. When I was coughing, I didn't want it on. I really feel like we need to be effective, I think we need to provide them with whatever we want them to do, because I know this thing about ignorance of the law is no excuse, but I don't think it's effective. So if there's anything like management principals or superintendent are particularly concerned about, I think they need to print out something and give it to them, or send it by email or something, in order for people to know what they're responsible for, that's all.
Okay, so do you have an addition or change to the policy, or?
Do you mind if I clarify that, Sharon? Because I remember that we did have a conversation. Sorry. And Sharon's, it's not necessarily a change to the policy. I suppose it's an addition we could make in the policy, but the concern was that she wants to make sure that all staff knows this information in this policy. And although that the policy manual is available online, she wanted to express her concern that she wanted to make sure that everyone views it. And correct me if I'm saying something not correct. We were fortunate to have Melissa McGuire with us at our meetings, and there is a list of policies which are put together for the staff, which are what's determined that the staff needs to have paper copy of, they discuss with, and this was not one of those. So I think that's where we were going with that. It's not necessarily a change to the verbiage in the policy, but the availability of this particular policy to the staff.
Okay.
I didn't understand what you said about that. So
it's hard trying to translate you.
So all I'm asking for is that whatever the expectations are for the teachers, that they're told specifically what those are, or whatever other staff.
I got it.
Because they've got so much to do, I just don't think it'll be effective. effective to say, make sure you are familiar with other laws of the state.
Our answer to Sharon was that they need to be responsible to read the policies.
Okay. But most teachers don't even know that those exist.
Okay. I'm not sure where to go with that. All right, any further comments on staff conduct? All right, so we will vote on that at our next meeting. The next one that comes up in my pile is staff ethics conflict of interest policy, which is GBEA. And looks like the last paragraph is where the major change was.
And those were added requirements, and that included specific timelines and proof of certificate of completion.
Okay. Any questions on?
And adopted and revised.
Thank you. Any questions on this policy? Okay, so we will vote on staff ethics conflict of interest policy at our next meeting. Next one I have is staff participation in political activities policy, which is GBI.
That was simply, we added the pronoun her to all where it said his/her.
Any questions, Ms. Long? Thank you. Sorry.
And added adopt and revised.
Any questions on policy GBI? Okay, we will vote on that at our next meeting. I have student records policy, JRA. Ms. Long.
We added adopted and revised.
Well, that's tricky. Questions on JRA? Okay, we will vote on that at our next meeting, and then there is a JRA-R, which is student records policy -R, because it's a lot longer than the other one. Ms. Long.
That one came directly from the CMR state regulations, which included language missing from definitions and added destruction of student records. Basically, it was state regulations we need to add to the policy, which were not in it before.
Thank you. Any questions on JRA-R? We would definitely not be reading that one. Okay,
I'm happy to read any of them out loud if Steve would like.
we will vote on JRA-R at our next meeting. Then I have tobacco use on school premises by staff members policy, GBED, George Bravo Edward David. Ms. Long.
This was a revised policy to include specific forms of tobacco products that were not previously included in the policy, and also adopted and revised.
Seems to be a theme. Mr. Duvall.
So by this, the students can, the staff can't?
We're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Ms. Long.
We're not there yet.
So this is only the
policy
staff
that.
members
I just
policy?
had to say it.
Yeah. So any questions on GBED? And we will vote on that one at our next meeting. I feel like I'm missing one.
EB?
Yes, thank you. The safety program policy, EB, is that? Yes, that is on our list. So yes, please. The safety program policy, EB. Ms. Long.
We added the MASC language for the first two paragraphs.
Why?
Because that is what was recommended to us by Melissa McGuire. That was her suggestion, and once we read through, we felt that it indeed needed to be incorporated.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the safety program policy, EB? Seeing none, we will bring that one at our next meeting to vote. Any, Mr. Duvall?
Have these been posted on the website? The reason we don't have to read them is they have to be posted on the website to be available for people to read.
They were in the agenda packet, which was posted on the website.
I don't
No.
know if that is enough. In the past, when we've done the major books, it's been posted on the website so that people can read it, and then we have an opportunity to vote on it.
So then should we have it posted, if we have it posted tomorrow, prior to it being voted on at our next meeting, or should it have been posted prior to the
No.
first reading?
This is our first reading, it gets posted, that's the first reading, it's
Okay.
being posted.
Okay, so if we post those on the website under school
Under
committee,
school committee.
under our agenda, or in our agenda packet, is that
Or
enough, or should it be a
just-
separate
Something under school committee that posts
draft policies?
policy draft.
Could we
or
Ms. Long?
voting
Could we post it under each individual meeting where they were worked on, when people, if people would review the
I
minutes?
think it needs to just be a tab that says
Mr. DeVol?
policies being,
So if we have a drop-down, I'm picturing the website, we have a school committee drop-down, and in that drop-down, there is a policy tab.
Yes.
So in that policy tab, we could have a draft policies
yeah.
add-on. I'm looking at our web person, for those who can't see where my eyes are going. So if we can add a draft policies section and post all of the policies that are either going to be read at our meetings, or in this case, now that we have had our first reading, so people can find them there. Yes,
I
ma'am.
have them all, but are we doing
This was very convenient.
the red line and?
No,
I was
just the
going to
draft,
Just the draft policy.
just the final draft. The red line is mostly for our clarification, for when we review them.
Under school committee policy meetings, we're going to do the red lines.
I'll
not doing anything.
clarify that with
Okay.
you for later, but
Okay.
for public knowledge, under the policy, we need to have the final draft with no red lines, the actual draft that we are reading at this meeting,
And no line throughs.
no line throughs. The one that would actually be posted as a policy. So we'll have that posted tomorrow or Monday, I'm not sure if you're not in, okay. I hear tomorrow. So, all right, thank you, Mr. DeVol, for pointing
Sorry,
that
Mr.
out.
Duval, that was probably partly my fault.
Probably.
You can blame it on me.
All right, so we had a first reading for those several policies, and therefore we don't have any subcommittee reports because the subcommittee just did a lot of reporting.
You're welcome.
Then we will move on to Mr. Carpenter's superintendent's report with a lovely building project update, which I can only imagine had to do with the HVAC.
Free stats, it's all about free stats. We had a conference call on the free stats to see if the contractor is amenable to coming and fixing the problem. I shared an email with Terry, which would, I think, be fair to summarize as prefer not, although they, after the conference call, there has been some movement to, let's try to meet in the middle, although we got an email from Train, the manufacturer of the units, who just seems less than enthused about fixing things. So we will see how things play out, between now and the next meeting. But it's beginning to look like the superintendent and business manager may be going up on the roof and moving free stats themselves.
I like how you added the business manager into the going up on the roof.
Somebody's got to hold the flashlight.
Ms. Stout?
So on that, we've held 30,000 back. And if they do not deal with it, we'll keep the 30,000 that would go towards fixing it.
We would have to, or we would use that money to help offset the cost of making whatever fixes are needed. I think the point of contention comes down to we were told that the free stats couldn't go in a particular place in these units, and it turns out that our consultant that we hired says, no, in fact, on these other projects in train units, they go where the design was. It's just more work to get them there. So So I think the latest email from Train is that they will not confirm or deny that they can do this. So
Fantastic.
it's like something that I just wish would go away. Because I know you wish that I was no longer talking about the HVAC system on this building.
All right, any further questions for Mr. Carpenter? All right, and we have reached the end of our agenda. Yay. Except for adjournment, of course. Would anybody care to make a motion?
I shall move.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Nope. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No abstentions, I assume? No? And it is unanimous. Good night. Thank you.